In this video, I'm going to show you how you can quickly create code using a spreadsheet. As a caveat, this video will be a little more technical than my others. It'll be most useful if you have set up Home Assistant and you want a way to simply manage code for customizations and groups, or regardless of whether you use Home Assistant or not, if you want to learn how to quickly create code using spreadsheets. It's hacky, but I've used similar techniques to code in other programming languages, especially for data science with SQL and R. I'll start with a background. As I worked on my home automation setup, I found myself spending a lot of time hunting through code to make sure icons, names, and groups were configured as I like. If I changed a name or I added a device, I found myself making changes in at least 3 different places, if I could even find all the code to update. Fortunately, I found a solution. Automate the writing of home automation code. Hi, it's Ron. I'll start by going over the parts of the tool at a high level, and then I'll go deep on how to use them. Let's take a look at the tool. And here it is. It's a spreadsheet I made in Excel. I track my keystrokes in this gray box. The Intro tab has background on the tool and a legend for what all the colors mean. The States tab processes data from Home Assistant. The Customize tab lets you customize the names, icons, and other parameters of entities. The Group tab allows you to group entities into cards and views. Taking a look at Home Assistant, a card is a group of entities like this, and a view is a tab up above. The next 2 tabs output the code that you can copy into Home Assistant. At the end, I have an optional tab that helps you convert YAML code into a table, so you don't have to recreate all your YAML code in this tool. Now I'll go deep on how to use the tool. Before we start, there are a few prerequisites I'd suggest before using this tool to make it easy for you. It's a bit obvious, but first, install Home Assistant and have it running. If you haven't already, create the Customize and Group sections in your current Home Assistant configuration. Second, separate the Customize and Group sections into their own YAML file using includes. This will limit the amount of time you'll have to spend scrolling through code. If you've recently installed Home Assistant, the Group section should already be separated into its own YAML file. I've noticed that new versions do this automatically. These links take you to resources to learn more. I'll walk through the colors. Green indicates inputs into the tool. Dark green indicates data you'll likely paste in. This includes entities. Light green data will usually be typed in. The black and gray columns are calculations you can use to filter the tables. Black checks for common issues such as duplicate values. Gray includes organization information such as which group the sensor is in. And yellow cells are outputs to copy directly into Home Assistant. Next is the States tab. Here you paste in entity data from Home Assistant. This tab allows you to quickly update the tool whenever you add devices. Press this plus to expand the rows and see detailed steps. It looks a little intimidating, but I tried to be overly specific. These steps will take you less than a minute when you're comfortable. You're really just copying and pasting one table from Home Assistant. First, navigate to Home Assistant in your browser. Under Developer Tools, click this button to view the states. Starting from the entity header, select the entire table. I like to start the selection, scroll down, and just shift-click at the end. Copy, I'll use Control-C, and then go back to the Excel tool, select the entity header in this table, and press Control-V to paste. It copied all the formatting from Home Assistant, but you can quickly get rid of that by navigating to Clear Formats, or you can use the shortcut Alt-H-E-F. Next, remove hyperlinks. Right-click an entity, and then left-click Remove Hyperlinks. Now this tab is updated. One thing to watch out for is that this only replaces existing rows. If you had additional rows right here, they wouldn't be replaced when you paste in the new data. Sometimes it's good practice to delete the final few rows to make sure none of the old rows remain. I'll undo because in this case we needed those rows. The first time you use this tool, you'll want to copy the entire entity column and paste it into the entity column of the Customize tab. However, if you're just updating the tool, use column I to find entities that aren't in the Customize tab and copy only those entities in at the bottom of the Customize tab to create new rows. So this is the Customize tab. Now that we're here, we'll talk about the Customize tab. This sheet is used to define the different attributes to customize each entity. You can hide an entity, you can give it a friendly name with capitalization and spaces. You can choose to include it in an emulated hue bridge. You can give it a name in that emulated hue bridge. You can give it a picture. This is good for device trackers. And you can give it an icon. I like to use material design icons. Let's take a look at the instructions on this sheet. So first, I already did this, but I made sure the entities were updated from the States tab. Next, populate these columns with your own preferences about what's hidden, what's not. One thing to note, in Excel, if you type a single quote, everything after will be text. If I didn't type a quote here, it would interpret the word true as a value. Similar to the States tab, the check columns check for common issues. If the Not in States tab column is selected, and this group isn't in Home Assistant. In my case, this is an old group, so I'll just delete this whole entity. And I'll clear the filter. This next check makes sure there aren't any duplicate entities. If for some reason there is a duplicate, delete one of the duplicate rows, and the other one should read OK. These last 4 columns can help sort the table. The domain column can filter by entity or device type. Here are all our binary sensors. Use location in HA to view how the entity will likely be displayed in Home Assistant, whether it'll be hidden in the default view or one of these groups. Note that only the first group is mentioned if an entity is assigned to multiple groups. Now let's take a look at how to create groups on the next tab. First, create an object ID for the group in the appropriate column. Next, define group attributes like the name and the icon in columns D through G. And finally, specify the entities in each group in columns H through AF. It's easiest to copy these entities just straight from the Customize tab. The entity check columns make sure that these entities are properly formatted. For example, no blanks ensures there aren't spaces in between the entities. Not in Customize makes sure the entities are actually in Home Assistant. If I were to just type test, it'd be flagged as not in the Customize tab. And finally, no duplicate prevents duplicate values. I'll talk about organization on this tab. Use the number column in column B to assign an order to the groups. Then sort from smallest to largest. Note that the order of each row in this table impacts the order in Home Assistant. If we scroll to the bottom, you can see that bedroom is before living room. And in my Home Assistant configuration, it defines the order of the views. Finally, this last entity column formats the newly created group as an entity. This is helpful because you can quickly add a new group to other groups, like this one. Please note that for this to work, you need to paste the actual text and not the formula that creates this. So go right-click, paste special, and then values. So it's text rather than a formula. You can also use the shortcut Control-Alt-V and then Enter to paste values. Now that's it. Let's take a look at the output code. This tab takes all your preferences from the Customize tab and formats it into YAML. The Group Code tab does the same for the Group tab. All you need to do is copy the yellow highlighted code, navigate to your Home Assistant configuration, select all the code, and paste it. Then just save the YAML file and restart Home Assistant. Now that I showed you how to use the tool, I'll quickly go over how it works. If you expand these columns, you can take a look at the formulas that generate code. I tried to spread the formulas across a bunch of columns to make it easier to see what each one does. The way the tool works is it increments through the different object IDs, and as it's incrementing through the different object IDs, it also increments through the different attributes and the entities. It pulls in code, and finally combines them into each line. I made a lookup table of code and spaces to make sure the formatting is right for YAML. For example, each entity begins with 4 spaces, a dash, and another space as defined in this cell. I'll give a quick overview of the YAML processing tab. I pasted my old YAML file that I used to define groups directly into this tool. I use this column to filter for the group name and the friendly name that I can just copy and paste into the group tab. I use this tab to filter for all the entities that I can also copy and paste into the group tab. Because I'm pasting formulas that are formatted vertically, I need to use paste special. So in the group, I select the cell that I want to paste it, right-click, paste special, paste values. So I'm pasting the actual names of the entities, then transpose so it moves the vertical orientation to horizontal. Press OK, and it pastes them horizontally as text. That's the tool. I'll end with a few quick caveats about the tool. It evolved from notes I kept about my configuration, so it's not very robust. There may be errors that pop up. I'll do my best to help, but I don't plan to formally support the tool. That being said, if you see ways to improve it, feel free to make changes and share. I avoided using macros, I kept everything unlocked, and I tried to make my formulas and logic as easy to read as I could, so other people could take this further. A few notes about Excel. If you're looking through the formulas and are confused about something, there are tons of great resources about Excel online. I learned Excel through looking at tools like this one that other people made. I hope this helps and makes coding and home automation a little bit easier for you. Thanks for watching.